Today, I am going to recap a movie titled Texas Chainsaw. I hope you enjoy it. The movie opens up when a group of young adults stop at a town for gas. They decide to go into a nearby house to get gas. Kurt goes into the creepy house to ask for help but is brutally murdered by a huge man wearing a mask. His girlfriend, Red Short Skirt, follows after him. She goes into the house to look for Kurt but also gets murdered. A third friend, Curly Hair, goes into the same house and meets the same fate as he gets murdered. The last girl decides to look for her friends as well when it gets dark. She is then captured by the family that lives in the house. She is in the process of getting murdered when she breaks free and jumps out of the window. She is chased down by the huge man wearing a mask and his brother as she runs through the field. She runs into the road. The two brothers follow her. The skinnier brother gets run over by a big truck. Another truck stops. Fortunately, she is able to get into the truck as it drives away and she narrowly escapes being murdered. She informs the police about her friend's murder and the police drive to the creepy house. Sheriff Marvin, the policeman in charge, steps out of the vehicle and asks the family to turn over the masked man who butchered the group of young adults. The huge man is with his uncles and Andy, who is nursing a new baby. The huge man's uncles decide to hand the man over to the police after revealing that he is mentally disabled. Right before they give him up, the town's mayor drives in with his crew. They intend to kill the whole family for their involvement in the murder. The sheriff disagrees as he wants to follow the law, but the mayor and his crew proceed to burn the creepy house down, shooting everyone inside in the process. The sheriff is aggravated about what happened. That same night, after the house burns down, the mayor and his crew look through the burned down house for remains. One of the crew members finds out that the huge man's auntie is still alive with her baby. He decides to take the baby and secretly kills the young woman. He and his wife raise the baby girl as their own. They name her Heather Miller. Fast forward 20 years into the future. Heather is now a grown woman. She works at a meat factory. Heather is visited by her friend at work, Horny Sorority, who informs her that she loves her new boyfriend's friend. Next, Heather's boyfriend Sexy Black is seen practicing self-defense on a heavy bag. Heather informs Sexy Black that her friend, Horny Sorority, likes his friend. Sexy Black tells her that she didn't stand a chance since his friend has so much swag. Sexy Black seduces Heather and they soon have a business transaction on the couch. Their business transaction is interrupted when mail is delivered to Heather informing her that her estranged grandmother had died. Heather visits her parents, who inform her that they are not her biological parents. Heather did not know that she had a grandmother in Texas until this point. This angers Heather as she storms off and decides to go to Texas to sign some documents for her grandmother's death. Heather confides in Sexy Black as he comforts her. The couple is later visited by their friends, Horny Sorority and Mustache. They all decide to join Heather on her trip to Texas. Set out on the trip, the group of horny young adults stop at a gas station to get some snacks and gas. As they head back on the road, Mustache accidentally hits a hitchhiker, Muscles, who is not injured from the accident. Muscles asks them for a ride as his car breaks down. He offers to pay them $60 for the ride. The group agrees after seeing his huge muscles. They head back on the road. On the ride, Muscles gets to know more about Heather and the group. The group stops at a town in Texas called Nude. They arrive at a big castle as Heather finds out it is the house passed down to her by her grandmother. Heather goes to investigate the gate. She is joined by Mr. Finsworth, a lawyer who brings Heather her grandmother's trust documents and hands her the key to the castle. He also gives her a letter from her grandmother and urges her to read it. Heather doesn't read it. The group of friends are excited to be in the new mansion as they investigate the house. Heather is overwhelmed by how much she now owns. Sexy Black and Horny Sorority start playing a game of pool as Heather goes outside to see her family graveyard. She looks through the graveyard and spots her grandmother's tombstone. Heather says thank you to her grandmother. Heather's friends are excited about her house and ask her if they can all spend the night. Heather reluctantly agrees. The group decide to go to a food store to get some food for the night. Muscles tells the group that he will stay behind and clean the house. The group doesn't know he is planning on rubbing the house. As the group leaves, Muscles goes back into the house and starts packing all the expensive gold housewares into his bag. The group goes to a nearby food store. In the food store, Horny Sorority starts to flirt with Sexy Black. He is concerned about this and he tells her to stop. It is revealed that they had a business transaction in the past behind Heather's back. Back at the castle, Muscles finds a secret door that leads down to the basement. In true horror movie logic, he goes down the basement and opens a door leading to a dark room. He finds another door and decides to break it open with all his muscles. When he doesn't succeed, he goes into his bag to get a tool to open up the door. Fortunately, he gets attacked by a huge man wearing another man's face over his own face. He gets clubbed to death. Back at the food mart, Heather gets harassed by a police officer, Jawline, who questions her about the castle. She is further harassed by the town's mayor, who offers to buy the castle from her. Heather is uncomfortable with the interaction and leaves. The group comes back to the castle to find it rummaged through. Heather is upset, but the group decides not to let Muscle's decision to rob the house ruin their trip. They decide to have a cookout as night falls. Sexy Black plays pool as horny sorority I rapes him from the balcony. Heather further investigates the house. She finds a picture of her dead grandmother. She notices that her grandmother had the same birthmark that she has on her chest. Meanwhile, Mustache makes food in the kitchen for the group. From the kitchen, Mustache sees the secret door that Muscle had gone into from before. His curiosity gets the best of him as he decides to open the door and go down the basement. He finds Muscle's bag down in the basement. He runs into the huge man in the basement. He tries to make a run for it but is stabbed in the back by the huge man with a hook. The huge man drags him down the stairs. Back upstairs, horny sorority tricks Sexy Black to go into the barn with her by pretending she saw something scary. Sexy Black goes into the barn with her, but to his surprise, she has set up a picnic for both of them in the barn. She then strips down and gets naked in front of him, revealing her lady lumps. They both have a business transaction. Back in the castle, Heather goes into her grandmother's room to look at her belongings but finds a dead body instead. She runs downstairs where she finds the huge man cutting off Mustache's fingers. She tries to run away, but the huge man overpowers her and knocks her unconscious. She wakes up in the basement only to find dead body parts everywhere. She looks around the basement and sees the body of Muscles and Mustache along with various torture tools. Mustache is still alive. The huge man proceeds to chop off Muscles' limbs. Upon chopping off the limbs, he notices that Mustache is still alive. He picks him up and hangs him on a meat hook. Mustache screams in pain and hits the huge man. This aggravates the huge man as he grabs his chainsaw and cuts Mustache in half. With the huge man distracted, Heather gets up and runs upstairs. The huge man runs after her. Heather runs into the graveyard and proceeds to hide in an open coffin. She tries to be quiet as the huge man looks for her with his chainsaw. He finds out where she is and starts sawing through the coffin with his chainsaw. Heather screams for help. Sexy Black and horny sorority hear her scream from the barn and run out to help her. They call out to the huge man to distract him. He hears them and starts running towards their direction. They go into the barn and lock the gates. The huge man starts cutting through the barn's gate with his chainsaw. Sexy Black and horny sorority find a gun and a wrench in the barn. Horny sorority proceeds to shoot at the huge man. They think they hit him as he's stow cutting. Suddenly the barn's gate is broken down as Heather drives through it with her van. Sexy Black and horny sorority get into the van. Sexy Black drives the van. The huge man comes after them. Sexy Black plans to drive through the gates of the castle. Heather warns him not to. He ignores her and proceeds to drive through it. He doesn't succeed as the van stops after he hits the gate. The huge man gets closer to them. Unfortunately, the gate opens and the van starts. However, right before the group drives off, the huge man slices one of the van's tires. The van drives off but breaks down and is flipped over. The group is knocked unconscious by the van flipping. Heather wakes up to find her boyfriend Sexy Black dead. Heather and horny sorority try to get out of the car. Heather gets out of the van and distracts the huge man, who runs after her, leaving horny sorority in the car. She runs into a circus event in the town and the huge man follows her with his chainsaw. Officer Jawline sees the situation. Heather runs into a Ferris wheel. She grabs one of the seats and the contraption wheels her up away from the huge man. The huge man waits for her below the Ferris wheel. As she gets closer to him, Officer Jawline calls at him and tells him to drop the chainsaw. He throws the chainsaw at the officer's jawline and runs away. Unfortunately, the jawline ducked on time and avoided the chainsaw. Another officer is sent back to the van to look for horny sorority, but he can't find her. Back at the police station, Heather explains her situation to the sheriff and the mayor. She is then left in the office with evidence about the huge man's family in the office as the sheriff and the mayor go outside to talk. Back at the castle, Officer Baldy decides to go into the castle and investigate. He gets a call from the mayor and sheriff and is instructed to record his surroundings. He gets to the castle's door and sees blood prints tracing into the door. He follows the blood prints into the basement. He finds bones, dresses, and lady makeup down in the basement. He then finds the bodies of Muscles and Mustache. He also finds a fridge. Suspecting that the huge man was hiding there, he opened the fridge. Horny Sorority jumps out of the fridge. Thinking she was the huge man, the police officer accidentally shoots Horny Sorority in the face. She dies. The bald head goes upstairs to get away from the house but runs into the huge man who brutally kills him with an axe. Back at the police station, Heather goes through the evidence box and finds out about the murders that happened at the farmhouse 20 years ago. She finds pictures of the mayor and his crew burning down the farmhouse and killing everyone in it. She becomes frightened and runs out of the police station. She finds a phone booth and calls Mr. Finsworth, who agrees to meet with her at a nearby bar. Back at the castle, the huge man peels off Officer Baldy's face and sews it onto his face. Heather meets up with Mr. Finsworth and is upset that he did not tell her about the huge man and all the deaths that occurred at the farmhouse 20 years ago. Mr. Finsworth explains to Heather that the huge man is her cousin and that he had no idea that he was alive until 4 months ago. The mayor comes into the bar, and Heather runs away after seeing him. On her way out, she is hit by a car driven by one of the mayor's crew members who was involved in the murders 20 years ago. She gets up and cuts the man with a knife when he comes closer. She runs off. She runs into Officer Julian, who pretends to help her get away from the mayor. She gets into his car. He locks the door. As he drives off, he gets a call from the mayor, who is revealed to be his father. Heather is scared as she now knows he is working for the mayor. The mayor instructs the Julian to take her to a slaughterhouse nearby. Overhearing the mayor's conversation over the radio, the huge man also heads over to the slaughterhouse. Over at the slaughterhouse, Officer Julian ties Heather up and steps outside to wait for his father. The huge man makes it to the slaughterhouse before the mayor. He turns on his chainsaw and gets ready to kill Heather. As he tries to cut her chest open with his saw, he notices a birthmark on Heather's chest. It is the same birthmark on his mother's chest. He is confused. He untapes Heather's mouth and she reveals to him that she is his cousin. Upon realizing that they are family, the huge man cuts Heather down. However, he is attacked from behind by the mayor and his friend. They brutally beat him and tie him up in chains. They intend to throw him into a wood chopper. Heather, who is now free, stabs the mayor's friend with a wrench. He grabs the huge man's chainsaw and throws it to him. He is now able to defend himself. He gets into a battle with the mayor and cuts him in his ankle with his chainsaw. He chases the mayor to the edge of the wood chopper. The mayor grabs onto the edge and begs the huge man to help him up. The huge man, however, cuts off the mayor's limbs and the mayor falls into the wood chopper, where he gets killed. The huge man has finally got his revenge after the mayor killed his family 20 years ago. The huge man and Heather go back to the castle. Heather cleans him up as she realizes he is now her responsibility. Heather finally reads the letter her grandmother left for her. The letter informs Heather about all the doors in the mansion. It also tells her her real name. Lastly, the letter informs her about her mentally disabled cousin, Jed, who is now her last remaining blood relative. Her grandmother tells her that she is responsible for taking care of him if she decides to stay. Heather accepts her new life.